Okay, it's about what 2 minutes past or 3 minutes now past 1 o'clock. So let me kick off this webinar to launch our portfolio of programs in the digital space. My name is Joe Peppard. I am a professor here at the Michael Smurfit Graduate Business School. I'm also academic director of Smurfit Executive Development, so have oversight of all our programs that we run here at the school for executives, both open programs as well as our customized programs for clients. And I'm also program director for our suite of digital programs. So what I want to do this afternoon is first of all talk a little bit about digital and digital transformation, just really to provide some context. I will then move on to talk a little bit about the school and introduce our programs before delving into detail in relation to the portfolio of digital programs. So that's the agenda. If you do have any questions, please use chat. James will be monitoring the chat channel and will pose questions to me at the end of the presentation if there are any. Okay, so let me start, and I put together a number of slides that I hope will sort of help in terms of structuring this particular presentation. So let me just load up my slides here. Oops, let me just start that again. Yeah. So let's kick off. So as part of the joining advertisement, we mentioned that you don't plan a digital transformation, you learn it. And I think that this is one of the key findings from my research and indeed from my work with companies on this whole broad area of digital. And as they look to embrace digital technologies and position themselves as leaders in the digital economy. There is no playbook. So if you are expecting that you come on our programs, for example, and you're going to leave with a playbook that will detail exactly what you need to do in order to transform your organization, that is not the situation. That is not the reality. Companies don't plan a transformation, you learn it. So by that I mean is, companies do things with the best of intentions as they look to embrace digital technologies, but very often find maybe a year, maybe 18 months, maybe 2 years down the road that, what they actually put in place isn't actually having the desired outcome. And what I find in my research is that there's a kind of a path dependency. So sort of history matters. So by that I mean is you can hear some great stories of companies and what they're doing, particularly today, companies talking about how they're using AI and maybe using Gen AI, for example. But you've got to remember that these companies that you might potentially look to emulate, they have put down over the years the foundations which enables them to do things today with technologies like Gen AI, which a lot of companies that are maybe just starting off will not just struggle to achieve, will never achieve. So digital transformation, it really is a journey. And I think one of the takeaways from all of the programs that I teach on is that it's less a technology challenge, it's more a leadership challenge. And again, in the programs that I work on, I also emphasize that companies should look at investments in digital as less about investments in technology and more about investments in change. Now, having said that, I think when I look at the design philosophy behind the programs, and again, the programs that I'll present to you later on in this webinar, it's really guided by three things. First of all, in designing, whether it's the diploma, whether it's the two-day open program, or indeed whether it's kind of programs for custom clients, what I want to do is for participants to leave with a frame of reference particularly for success, and a frame of reference for digital. The second objective that I set in terms of designing programs is to provide participants with a language. So if this webinar was on finance, accounting, you would recognize that concepts like assets, liabilities, debtors, creditors, balance sheets, profit and loss statements, they are part of the vocabulary of accounting and finance. And similarly, when we delve into digital transformation, digital innovation, AI and analytics, it also has its own language. And it's important when an organization sets out to leverage digital technologies, that it does establish kind of a common language, a common understanding. And then I think the third objective is to present some frameworks and models. But I kind of issue a health warning here, is that models shouldn't be seen as something that would give you the answers, tell you the decisions that you should make. At the end of the day, decisions are made by managers, by executives. But what these frameworks and models do is they fuel a conversation. They set out options. They set out consequences. Okay? And let me illustrate what I actually mean by that. Before I joined Smurfit about 18 months ago, I spent a number of years at the Sloan School of Management at MIT, working in this whole area of digital transformation, AI and analytics. And in our work, but our research work, but also in our teaching, we sort of recognized that despite the fact we, particularly in our research studies where we would have, surveyed, maybe over 1,000 organizations, some of them we would have done some deep dives, others would have just completed questionnaires. But when we sort of looked to see what companies were achieving, or indeed were looking to achieve with their digital ambitions, we sort of expected that maybe there might be 20 or so, kind of generic objectives. We were wrong. What we actually found was that companies were really looking for step improvement along two dimensions. So this is really, no matter what size company you are, no matter what your ambitions might be expressed, or indeed how they might be expressed, really what you're looking for is a step improvement along two dimensions. The first dimension is operation efficiency. So this is really looking to use technology to improve productivity. You're looking to increase the automation impact of technology, probably increase standardization, in terms of new ways of building systems today that are very modular. You're focusing on reuse. So essentially, companies are looking to improve the overall efficiency of their business. The second dimension is a step improvement in customer focus, really looking to improve the customer experience. Very often this is achieved by launching new digital business models, for example. So we've seen a lot of manufacturers over the last number of years shift their business model away from selling products, moving more into the service space, becoming more driven by platforms, for example. So these are the two ambitions. And what we did then, as I said, we kind of worked with over 1,000 organizations. We said, okay, let's look and see if we can maybe or categorize these 1,000+ organizations in some way using this insight. And what we did was we built this framework. So this, again, I talked about the importance of developing frameworks to fuel a conversation. This is one such framework that we developed. And what we found was that there were, a whole bunch of companies that we sort of categorized under the label of silos and spaghetti. Yeah, so these were, fairly inefficient, low levels of automation. There wasn't really much standardization across the business in terms of processes, and they were really providing customers with a lousy experience. Typically, they tend to be product-driven rather than customer-focused. What we found they also had was a complex landscape of processes, systems, and data. So lots and lots of legacy, lots and lots of technical debt. And typically we found that things got done because of the heroics of individuals, particularly individuals working within the IT department. So, for example, one company that I spoke to, had a payroll system that was many decades old. Most people across the organization thought it was okay, but what they didn't realize was that at the end of every month, the last 3 or 4 days, 6 or 7 people from the IT department, worked late just to make sure that everybody got paid. Okay. This is where we see high performers looking to get to become what you might label as future ready. So these companies here have transformed both their operations as well as their customer experience. They're both innovative and low cost. So at the same time as looking to take out maybe 3 to 5% year on year from their cost base, they're also looking to be innovative. They provide great customer experience. They're modular, they're agile. Data is a strategic asset, and they're also ecosystem ready. Be that, they are kind of the ecosystem driver themselves, or maybe that they have the ability to plug into the ecosystems of other business partners. And then there were a bunch of companies that we labeled integrated experience. So these companies had really worked on, transforming their customer experience, but hadn't given their operational efficiency much attention. You might characterize these companies as sort of a little bit like, digital lipstick. So, they might have a really nice app, for example, that enables customers to place orders, but actually behind the scenes, it's quite a complex operations, which can very often mean that companies here can have a really high net promoter score, obviously because of the great customer experience they're providing, but actually are losing money because they are operationally inefficient. And then the final quadrant, the bottom right-hand quadrant, we label companies that we found here as industrialized. So these are companies that have really focused on improving the efficiency of their operations. They've got plug and play, their products and services. They've, lots and lots of APIs, highly standardized. So there's only one way to do, key processes, and there's a single source of the truth. So highly efficient, but may not be providing great customer experience, particularly in comparison to, top performers in their particular sector or industry. So again, this is an example of a framework. It's a great device to have a conversation with a leadership team in respect of, where are we? And we have data as well that kind of backs up performance in each of the quadrants. So if, as I said, I mentioned we worked with about 1,000 plus organizations, 51% of them were in solid and spaghetti, 20% in integrated experience, 7% in industrialized, 22% in future ready. But when we look at the performance data, it's probably going to be obvious to everybody. Solid and spaghetti, your performance compared to your industry average net margin is minus 7.9 percentage points. Even with this integrated experience, you're providing this great customer experience, but as I've said, your operational inefficiency eats into your margin, which means that you're performing below industry average net margin. Industrialized, 1.8 percentage points above industry average net margin, but look at the future ready number, 19.3 percentage points above industry average net margin. So what that indicates is there's a lot to play for. Okay, so this is just, as I said, one of the frameworks that we would use on our programs, and then we use it then to plot out how does a company get to future ready, for example, what are the challenges that companies face depending on the route that they take to getting to that future ready state. But going back to what I said at the outset, you should not expect that a framework like this will give you any answers. But what it will do is it will help fuel a conversation. It will help establish sort of a frame of reference, and it would also help in terms of the beginnings, at least, of establishing a vocabulary. Okay, so let me just, before I talk a little bit more about the programs in our portfolio as they relate to digital and AI and analytics, just to say that at executive education here at the Michael Smurfit Graduate Business School, you know, the Financial Times ranks us as the #1 provider in Ireland for open enrollment programs, and that actually translates into being number 46 globally, but we're also 33rd in the world globally for customs programs. The short programs, and we have one in leading digital and AI business transformation. This program runs in December. It's a 2-day program. So on the slide, you just see we also have a number of other short programs in the portfolio. I'll just give you an illustrative agenda for this 2 days later on in my talk. But this particular short program runs this year on the 2nd and 3rd of December. I think it's a Monday and a Tuesday. If we look at our portfolio of diploma programs, of which the Diploma in Digital Innovation and Transformation is one, and again, I'm sort of listing out here just for information purposes the other diplomas that we offered, as well as when they are starting. So you can see the Diploma in Digital Innovation and Transformation begins at the end of November. Our Diploma in Artificial Intelligence and Business Analytics will start next spring. We are currently just halfway through the first cohort of this particular diploma program. And then just to close out our our diploma offerings, the diploma in team coaching, and then we've got our diploma in corporate governance, which has already begun. Okay, so again, you will get a copy of these slides at the end of this webinar, so you will have all of this information to hand. So what I'd like to do is just to give you some background information as to what to expect if you are to come on the Diploma in Digital Innovation and Transformation. So the structure of the program, first of all, the expectation is that as a participant on the program, that you will put in about 720 hours of effort. Okay, so these programs result in an award that's accredited by the university, and to be awarded a diploma, as I said, this university award, the expectation is that you will have put in 720 hours of effort. Now, you don't spend 720 hours here at Smurfit, and I'll talk a little bit about how we kind of structure each of the modules, because there will be some self-study as well as the kind of the face-to-face element, plus some additional work and obviously then the assignments that you need to prepare for each module. So this is the kind of the structure of the Digital Innovation and Transformation diploma. You see 6 modules, and they sort of build on each other. So by the time you get to module 6, we really now have the foundations where we can start looking at, well, how do you lead now a digital business transformation initiative? How do you sort of set it up for success? You know, because you now know about data, because you now have a good understanding of AI. So just if I go through the kind of the modules very, very quickly. So the first module is really taking a more strategic perspective of digital. So how is digital impacting strategy? We'll talk a lot about, you know, digital business models, and again, what that means for organizations, what that means for competition. So for example, we'll talk about platform-based business models, for example, and how can a traditional player, an incumbent in an industry, perhaps think about moving to become more of a platform player, for example. Module 2, we kind of really focus down on data, AI, and analytics. Because, you know, when we look at digital, we look at the digital economy, you know, data is really the ingredient of the digital economy. It's the ingredient of digital. So we'll spend a bit of time looking at data. We also then will delve into AI, and obviously we would focus on the topic of the moment, you know, Gen AI, but also look at analytics, because AI and analytics are very, very closely related. Module 3, which is looking at demand and supply chain applications, we spend the time really looking at how, you know, different organizations in different industries and sectors are using and harnessing different technologies for different purposes. So we do spend quite a bit of time, particularly on the first day of the face-to-face module, looking at the impact that technology has had on marketing, for example, you know, digital marketing. I'm sure you're all probably aware of, you know, the impact of technology and how products and services are now marketed to you in the retail space, but we're also seeing it happen as well in the B2B space as well. We'll also have a look at and deep dive into HR analytics. We look at, you know, the impact of technology on supply chains. So that's very much focusing on the different application areas of the different types of technologies. And that includes looking at the likes of blockchain, for example. Module 4 is really taking as its genesis the fact that, you know, in today's digital economy, organizations that are looking to embrace digital need to sort of rethink how they're organized, because most companies today are organized along the traditional precepts of, you know, the industrial organization. But when we look at some of the top performers, when we look at the likes of Spotify, when we look at the likes of Amazon, for example, you know, when we look at born digital companies, they are organized in quite different ways. And so the basic premise here is that if we were starting out today with today's technology and with what we know, that we would probably design our organization in a different way. And that sort of gives us a glimpse as to that, you know, that kind of future ready, what that looks like. Because it's not just about, you know, embracing and deploying technology. It's also looking at what do we want our future organization to look like. And obviously, you know, working from home, that phenomenon that has happened over the last 3 or 4 years. And again, that is, you know, an organizational design choice, obviously heavily enabled by technology. Module 5 looks at digital innovation and strategy. I think we can't decouple innovation and strategy. They are, you know, two sides of the same coin. So we'll look at what that entails, the role of data in that innovation process, and also, you know, what does, you know, a digital strategy actually look like, and how do you start beginning to think about how you might actually build one. And then the final module, as I said, it's really then you should be in a position then to think about putting in place a transformation program and leading that. So that really is the focus of this final module, module 6. So, as I said, each module is a component of an overall university awarded diploma, and that requires that we have to assess each module, to make sure that you understand and have a grasp of the content, the material, the knowledge that we cover during each of the modules. So if I look at the structure of an individual module, again, it kind of expects that students will spend maybe about 120 hours of effort for the duration of the module. Now, quite a big chunk of that is spent in the pre-work. So this is really preparation for the classroom sessions. So what we do is we provide curated content. Some of that will be maybe some articles to read, and they may be academic articles, they may be practitioner articles, they may even be blog posts. You may have to watch a video or two, perhaps listen to a podcast or maybe a number of podcasts we will ask you to listen to. We may ask you to prepare some case studies. And again, a case study is typically a scenario, very often in a real organization, that we will then use in the classroom as a basis for discussing and also then drawing out some key lessons. We might also set some reflective questions. So before you come into the classroom, we might set 3 or 4 questions that we would ask you to maybe just think about in respect of your own experiences, perhaps your own organization, and then again, that will form part of what will happen within the face-to-face element. Sometimes we do get you to do a kind of a small assignment that is assessed before you actually come to the classroom. So it's all about preparation for the kind of the classroom sessions. So it's a little bit like a kind of a flipped kind of classroom, because in the classroom then it's more about kind of that facilitated discussions around the content that will have been prepared before you come into the class, if that sort of makes sense. And that is a two-day face-to-face element. It's mandatory to all our diplomas that students come to this 2 days. And then at the end of the 2 days, there will be an assignment that will be assessed. And sometimes that might include additional work. So there may be a recommendation that you listen to an additional podcast, or watch a YouTube video or read an article. But again, that all contributes to this 120 hours of effort for each of the module. So then again, on completion of the 6 modules, on completion of the modules successfully, that means then you will be awarded a diploma from UCD. Just these are the dates of the cohort that will begin in November. So again, these slides will be sent to you by James at the end of the webinar. But it just gives you a sense. So we start off in November, at the end of November. Then module 2 is mid-January. End of January is module 3. February, March, we skip out, but at the beginning of April, module 4. Mid May, module 5, and then we finish off then with a 2-day face-to-face for module 6 in June. So that's the kind of the structure of the digital innovation and transformation. If we look at the diploma in artificial intelligence and business analytics, the next cohort, the next intake will be in March. So again, I've just given you an outline here of the structure of this particular diploma. It's got, like the diploma in digital innovation transformation, it's got six modules. The same amount of effort will be required. So module 1, we look at some of the foundations of AI and business analytics. The second module will really be looking at how do you leverage AI in your business, and also how do you leverage analytics with some examples. And I should say also in all of our modules, typically I like to bring in guest speakers, as does I know my colleague Professor Mike O'Neill. So for example, module 2 last year on the diploma in AI and business analytics, for example, one of our speakers is the head of AI and analytics from ICON, for example. Module 3 is all about demystifying business analytical technology. This is probably the module that is a little bit more analytical, but that shouldn't make you kind of reconsider if you were considering this. This is not a technical program, but what we do want you to do is to sort of get your hands a little bit dirty with data, so to speak. So rather than just talking about forecasting, for example, or sampling sizing, size, or indeed, what are the, some sensitivity tests? Well, in the classroom, we actually do some forecasting. We do some predictive analysis. So in your organization, if you are engaged in, analytics or AI projects, that, when you talk to a data scientist, at least you kind of know what is involved in maybe some of the analysis that the data scientist is maybe proposing to undertake. I was just chatting to one of the students who was on the module which finished, module 3, which finished on this current cohort a couple of weeks ago, and she was saying to me that right the next day after the face-to-face element, she was in a meeting with some colleagues and they were talking about sampling, and she was able then to question, had they chosen the right approach to sampling, for example. Module 4, demystifying AI technology. Again, this will be looking specifically at AI. So for example, reinforced learning. How does that work? Large language models. How do they work? So it's sort of, it's kind of demystifying AI. So at least you've got that understanding. As I said, it's not technical, but it gives you that understanding that what reinforced learning versus other types of learning might be. So if you are again working with somebody from the AI team and they start talking about the types of learning, you know what they are referring to. Module 5, very, very important, looking at the risk and risks around data, risks around AI and analytics, also getting into the whole area of ethics. And as I'm sure most of you are aware, regulations are coming down, very, very quickly around AI with the EU AI Act. But we also have the Digital Service Act. We have GDPR, and there's, a lot of the regulatory bodies as well are putting in place, various regulations around not just data, but also AI. And then the final module, which I actually lead, really focuses in on, well, what does success look like? How do you set up the organization for success with AI and analytics? Just to mention that we do offer a pathway to a master's. Okay, so we've got 2 distinct pathways, and essentially, to be awarded a master's, you must successfully complete 3 individual professional diplomas. So if you're thinking about, possibly a master's, an MSc in business, which would be in leadership and management practice, both the diplomas in digital innovation and transformation and AI and business analytics, sit within this framework. If you're more interested in the MSc in business and executive coaching, you really would need to complete a minimum of 2 coaching diplomas, plus our diploma in leadership or our diploma in organizational change and transformation. And if I can come back to this, the open program that I referred to at the outset. This is a 2-day program that it's an open program, so it's not assessed. It runs, as I said, at the beginning of December. What I've just got here is just an illustrative agenda. This may change, but it kind of gives you a sense of the topics that we would cover over the 2 days. It's probably, how can I say, it's probably maybe the director's cut of the diploma in digital innovation and transformation. So we don't really do a kind of a deep dive into any one particular topic, but it kind of, again, depending on what you're looking for, it kind of gives you enough to have an understanding. And typically the first day is all about establishing the strategic and operational intent for digital. So that entails looking at, the impact of technology and strategy and business models. How do you build a strategy for digital? And then the second day, we're really focusing on delivering real business value from investments in technology. So that again gives you a sense of the topics that will be covered. So that's me done. We got a bit of time left. Let me stop sharing my screen. And James, I'm not too sure if there are any questions coming in on the chat.
Joe, yes, we've had a couple of questions here. So one of the questions is in terms of what support do we provide to participants, in helping them achieve the desired result they want to get from the program?
Oh, well, I'm not too sure what support that particular person is looking for. We would hope that in the curated material that we would provide, pre each module, as well then the 2-day face-to-face, as well, obviously then as the post module, maybe work and assignment, that sort of sets up the students for success. What I instigated this year is between modules, kind of a check-in, which is something I will continue next year as well. So if you do, when you have any questions between those kind of face-to-face elements, that there will be kind of an hour. Generally, we kind of met at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday or Wednesday morning. That seemed to suit most people. No new content was presented, but if there were any kind of questions that were arising, be that question be in respect of, let's say, the assignment, for example, or maybe some of the readings, that was the opportunity to raise that question, obviously outside of the classroom, and I would then look to address that question.
Yeah, fantastic. And there's another question here, Joe, as well. And I suppose it's really it's just asking about, is the program industry agnostic? So
yes, it is. It is absolutely. We look at different industries, and I'm thinking off the top of my head, everything from banking through to one of the cases that I use is L'Oréal, for example, which you may not expect to be, a company that you would study in respect of digital, but I would actually suggest to you that they are probably one of the leaders, and they position themselves as the leading company in beauty tech. We look at manufacturing companies. We even look at public sector as well. So we're very much sector agnostic and industry agnostic. Although having said that, just because, let's say, you work in the public sector, for example, you might say, well, what's a banking case study got to do with the public sector? Well, if you look at a bank today, a modern bank, Bank of Ireland, AIB, the product is digital. The engagement with customers is also digital. And if you work in a bank, essentially you work with data and digital tools. Now, contrast that with a public sector organization. As citizens, we are increasingly demanding, of government, of the institutes that we would engage with, that we don't want to, we want the service to be digitized, if at all possible. Like, we don't want to go to an office and queue up to, tax our car, for example. We want to do it online. So we are driving government to the public sector to digitize services. We want to engage with government and the various authorities in a digital way. And if you work in the public sector, guess what? You work with data and digital tools. So what's the difference between a bank and a public sector organization? So there's lots and lots of lessons to be learned across industries. Yeah, lots and lots of lessons to be learned.
Fantastic. And I have another question here. It's probably aimed at myself, and it's just in terms of admissions. So you'll find my contact details on the website, and you can contact me directly and to discuss the program and your particular situation, and then fees, etc. And then we can share the admissions link with you as well. So please feel free to do that. My contact details will come out after the webinar with the email to those who attended and those who couldn't make it on the day. And I think that's it. It sounds very exciting, Joe. And in terms of like the industry agnostic, and typically the classroom that we get offers a great opportunity for people to network and meet other individuals outside their industry, which I think is
Yes,
important.
yeah, it's probably, James, just worth saying that, as I said, the digital innovation transformation, we ran it for the first time this year. We finished in June. And just there were 30 participants. That's our limit. And they came from a diverse background, both public and private sector, small and large organizations. You know, some people on the program were more technical than others, but that doesn't matter. You know, this program, you know, does not have any prerequisites, and this same for the AI and analytics. You know, you're not expected to have, you know, honors leaving certain maths, for example. It's not that type of program, because we recognize that our participants typically are mid-career to senior executives. So that's they're not coming on, you know, this program, let's say in AI or analytics. You know, you're not coming in this program because you want to, you know, start programming in OR. That's not, you know, but you will be working, for example, with people who will be programming, you know, and so this is where you need maybe the language, the vocabulary, that sort of understanding as to what, you know, an analytical process looks like, for example. You know, some of the challenges around data as well, and you know, some of the risks, but also as well how some of those risks can be overcome, and obviously with AI as well, we got the issue of bias. So it's very much no prerequisites in that respect, a mixed you know, cohort of participants, and that means then that there's some really great discussions, because part of our job as teachers on, you know, exec ed programs is to bring out the experiences that people in the classroom have in respect of the particular topics, particular issues that we are discussing.
Fantastic. That sounds like an exciting journey. Thanks very much, everybody, for attending. We've no more questions now, and I will follow up with the details afterwards, and we'll give people back the gift of time and get a few minutes extra before you have to return to your day job at 2. Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you very much, Joe.
Cheers, everybody. Maybe see you in November. Hopefully.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you so much.